rest.
Counting careless in the sky. What a thrilling time to be alive.
What is up, everybody? It's Jake Rowe, Georgia Show. I had to rush back to the camera right here at the end. I had to run do something as everything was going on, but I made it. We made it back here live here Thursday morning. Palmer Tom's with me. We're from Dawgs HQ, and I got a full show for you. We're going to talk injuries for Georgia, Florida, lingering thoughts, final thoughts on Georgia, Florida. We're going to hear from some of our partners, and we are also going to make our predictions on the game. But Palmer, before we get into any of this stuff, what you've been up to and what's kind of stuck with you this week is you've heard Kirby talk a couple times now about this team coming off that Texas win and off that bye week.
Yeah, I hope y'all know. Jake says, hey, let's go. So I hit like, let's go live, and I start playing the video, and I look down to bring everybody in, and I'm like, where's Jake? So that's a little behind the scenes. No, I mean, I think that, listening to Kirby talk about this Florida team, we obviously know how much this rivalry game means to him. Has been that way for so long. Back from when he was a player, he experienced some hard times in this series. And then, as a coach, he's had a little bit more success. And, this is a game that we always see an emotional, fired up Kirby Smart. And I think that the bye week plays a factor in that. I think it's a chance to get rejuvenated, get juiced up a little bit, and get ready to roll for the closing stretch of the season. Georgia's got, a calendar turns to November tomorrow, and we've got 5 games to go for Georgia, and a very important 5 games. And so, listening to him talk, I think you understand the significance of where Georgia's at in this season. What is ahead of them with this rivalry game. And really on down the line, as you hear him talk about, hey, we've spent some time preparing for each of our opponents. We got some good teams, some talented teams, some teams that if you don't, give them the proper attention, they'll make you pay. So I think that's kind of where we're at with Georgia's season. And as we enter into a world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Yeah. And I mean, I think everybody understands that. I know the question came up earlier, can Florida beat Georgia? And listen, I think Georgia's definitely one of the best teams in the country, but I don't think I would really, there's a very short list of teams in terms of P4 teams that I would say don't have a chance to beat Georgia. I think Georgia can kind of go out there and stink it up and mess around and give anybody kind of a swingers, a puncher's chance. But ultimately, I think if Georgia goes out there and plays really well, I don't think Florida stands much of a chance. I do think this Gator team is talented enough to kind of stick in the ball game if it plays well. But that takes you to this next point. They're going to limp into this one because Jason Marshall, their best defensive back, gone for the season. Eugene Wilson, one of their top pass catchers and biggest weapons, 11 catches, 75 and a touchdown against Georgia last year. Is not available for this game. He's already been ruled out. Montrell Johnson and Damian George, both starters. Montrell Johnson, leading rusher. Damian George, the starting right guard, also on the injury report listed as questionable. So, I know Zach over at our Abel Verity over at our Florida site reported that Montrell Johnson has practiced this week. So that's something to keep an eye on. But the Gators injury report's kind of tough, and it seems like Georgia's is looking a lot better than we would normally, than we have all season, than we've seen it all season.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Georgia from the perspective of likely to get Tate Ratledge and Jordan Hall back, and I know that Jordan Hall return has been anxiously awaited for weeks and weeks and weeks, and fans may question, is he going to play until they see him out there on the field? I think that he was available to go against Texas. And, both of us watched those two guys warm up, and neither of them looked all that injured. And I think the bye week certainly helps them feel a little bit better. And, like I said about Kirby being juiced up for the end of the season, those guys have a chance to get juiced up as well. So, that Florida report, like you said, very long, a lot of impactful players, and that's certainly going to impact the way that I see this game.
Yeah, that's to me coming into this one. I felt like Florida had a way to match up with Georgia, and the way to kind of match up with Georgia was kind of like Jason Marshall kind of takes one side of the field and locks it up as a cornerback, and then you're going to have Eugene Wilson and the Badger kid kind of stretching the field. What's his name? Ethan Badger, I believe is his name. That might be a kicker. I'm not 100% sure. I've heard that name a few different times now. But either way, he's the Badger kid is their leading receiver. And I thought that kind of that duo. Elijah Badger. I thought that duo kind of was pretty strong. Now, granted, I thought Eugene Wilson had a chance to come back this week. I didn't know that he had to actually come back the past couple of weeks. And so I was a little bit kind of bullish on bullish on Florida's chances in the secondary because I thought they were going to get a little bit of a boost. Now, granted, he had a 40-yard catch against Kentucky last time out. I think he's got like 5-6 catches for 75 yards in the past 2 games. Wilson, that is. So, I mean, but you take 2 of the better athletes off of that team, and it knocks them down a peg, man. And they're dealing with some injuries too at a real significant level. And obviously Georgia's going to have a chance to get some guys back in the second half of that game that were on the availability report. We got clear word on Jonel Aguero and Dan Jackson, which, that's done, signed, sealed, delivered, it looks like at this point. So we can move on with that one, and those guys will be available come the third quarter. But I think those are some pretty significant ones as well. Palmer, take us to PrizePicks. What do we got here?
Yeah, we've got a quarterback parlay that we're putting together here.
It's not a parlay, Palmer.
It's not a parlay.
It's not a parlay.
It's a play.
It's a play is what it is. It's a play.
A quarterback PrizePicks play. Diego Pavia, Will Howard, Jackson Dart. We're looking at these quarterbacks in their big games this week. Ole Miss taking on Arkansas. A noon slate play right here that we've got with Pavia and Commodores taking on Auburn at 12:45. Will Howard in the game of the week against Penn State at 12, and then Jackson Dart at 12 as well. Gonna keep an eye on those games. I mean, certainly gonna have an eye on Ohio State, Penn State, with that being the national game of the week, but also from a Georgia perspective, Ole Miss. Let's check those. Let's check out the Rebels before Georgia gets a piece of them. So we are going more on Pavia against Auburn, less on Howard against Penn State, and more on Jackson Dart against Arkansas. We were close last week, Jake, and I'm feeling good about ourselves this week. But PrizePicks promo code DAWGS. Use promo code DAWGS DAWGS for $50 on your first play of 5. It's a fun way to play. It's a fun way to be engaged in some games that you might not have a team in. We didn't have any Georgia plays there, but we're gonna have an eye on all those games now and some vested interest in it. So use promo code DAWGS DAWGS at PrizePicks.com and get $50 on your first play of 5. It's a fun way to play and a fun way to stay involved in the action.
Yeah, great time. PrizePicks is awesome. All right, lingering thought, Palmer. What's the one thing that's kind of stuck with you throughout this week, thinking about this Georgia-Florida game, thinking about the trip down to Jacksonville? I don't care what it is. It could be like, hey, I don't want to come back with food poisoning after eating too much seafood. It doesn't really matter. What's the one thing that has really stuck with you kind of throughout the week?
It's that I'm excited for these burn ends with you, Jake.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
always about the barbecue with you, man. I can't believe this. This is unreal. You are obsessed with barbecue.
No, I mean, I think this is always a fun, exciting atmosphere. It's a different one, and I think that's something that you can appreciate. I heard Kirby talking this morning in a radio interview, and he said, that it's always loud. There's always some sort of buzz. And I think momentum is so important in this game because you have an opportunity, to really take out half the crowd. But that there's always going to be some sort of buzz unless you go and take that momentum. So, to me, I think the oddity of it and the uniqueness of it is something that we can appreciate. And I mean, Jake, let's talk about the fact that they're moving it to Atlanta and Tampa. You know,
I don't want to.
You don't want to?
I don't want to talk about that. That makes me mad.
Makes you mad? What did you want to see it on campus?
Yeah, for sure, dude.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to see it on campus? Like, I mean, I understand. Like, I get that it's got to be on Jacksonville.
That are getting $5 million, $10 million for it at a neutral
well, it's
site.
just like I'm not. If you want to keep it in Jacksonville for the long term, that's fine. But let's take every opportunity we can to bring it back to the campuses for a minute or two. I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask. Like, you know, now and again,
but you get it on campus, and those coaches are never going to want it to leave.
Yeah, but I don't think that. I mean, I think that's why the city of Jacksonville's got to be smart with that. They got to get an agreement in place before they decide to let them have it as a home and home. And you know, I mean, I think the schools could have been really smart as well, and they could have pried some money out of Jacksonville and as a retainer type thing. Like, hey, listen, you pay us to kind of make us whole here for these neutral site games that we're going to miss while you're renovating. And we'll just do it at home and home, and we'll definitely sign with you when we come back. I mean, I think there's some ways that you could have done this to get this on campus for a short period of time. It's stupid not to give it an opportunity. And then honestly, like, I think the coach's mindset has to change now. When you start talking about revenue sharing and those types of things, like creating some more money. I mean, we're talking about a situation now, Palmer, where teams are trying to figure out, all right, am I going to fill my 85 or am I going to go to 95 or am I going to 100 or 105? Well, if you're Georgia and Florida, this game, the kind of the revenue you make over a home game every other year and getting that revenue every year, the money you make on that can pay for every 4 years, probably about 10 to 12, maybe 15 scholarships. And then that kind of, you know, allows you to pay revenue share with 15 extra players and to do the things.
And that's why it's at a neutral site for those 2 years.
Sure. 100%. And I get that. Like, I get that, but it's not like I'm beating anybody up over it, but I feel like if they could have squeezed some money out of Jacksonville and there's leverage could have been used better here to make sure this thing got on campus and to make sure people made their money. And, you know, but at the end of the day, if this was the way to make the most, I understand it. I'm never going to fault, because I've always looked at it like this. Everybody talks about, well, you can't wait to, you know, it's all about the money. It's all about the money. And I get that it is, but this isn't one of those situations where you have a CEO or you have a president or you have a director or something like that that's just raking out all the money. It's just they're trying to rake it in to sustain the sport. Nobody's doing this to get rich. The players are doing it as much as anybody to get rich, to take their, you know, talents as far as they can go and to make as much as they can right now. Right now, it's about getting as much money as you possibly can, because money equals survival in this sport right now. And that's the fact of the matter.
Yep. You're right. Spot on. No, but to me, that is a lingering thought of just that neutral site. As we talk about money and all that and everything that's changing in college football, I think it's cool that this game continues to be on a neutral site. It would have been cool to see it on campus. I would have loved to make a trip to the Swamp, you know, something that I haven't done. I don't know if you've done. I know you've never done it in a, you know, working capacity, but you know, that would have been cool. I do think that, you know, generally speaking, though, I think it's cool that this game stays traditional and stays at a neutral site.
Yeah, and I've always been good with that too. It's just, you know, I don't know. You get an opportunity to take it home and home. You did it before. I think it would have been fun to do again. And I'm with you. I'd love to do the Swamp as well. Let's go to NFHS. There won't be very many neutral site games on NFHS yet. We're going to get into the playoffs at some point. Most states have some sort of neutral site clash in the playoffs, whether it's the semifinals or the state championship games. That's coming up, guys. High school football got pushed back a week in the state of Georgia, in case everybody didn't really know. The playoffs did, I believe, so there could be makeup games after the hurricane. So, you know, that those are coming up really, really
Is this the last week of the regular season?
It could be. It could be. We're getting pretty close here. I know usually the right around Thanksgiving's the second round of the playoffs, but I think right around Thanksgiving this year with the timing is going to be around the third round of the playoffs. So we're getting pretty close.
It might be. But NFHS, your way to watch it all.
Absolutely. NFHS, I don't care if you want to watch high school football, that's great. See those Georgia commits, see those Georgia targets, Osmani Chroma, Elijah Griffin, you've seen so many different guys. Talon Taylor, exactly. You've seen so many different Bulldogs on NFHS this year. I've done some clip outs. I've shown some different things. You can use GoDogs25 as your promo code, and you can get 25% off of your first month of NFHS and get this final month of the high school football season and sample it out for some other things, volleyball, tennis. I believe they even have track meets on there. I mean, they've got a little bit of everything. You can watch some feeder league football type stuff with 9th grade and 10th grade teams. If you've got a relative, it's a wonderful way to keep up with folks. And it's a great organization to support because they are supporting the student athletes at the high school level. Pretty much all 50 states, especially state of Georgia's carried really heavily. Going over to NFHS, I check it out just about every Friday night. I've had a hard time here lately with us traveling, but when I'm in pocket on Friday night, I'm looking at NFHS. It is a lot of fun. I definitely advise you to check it out if you love ball and soak it all up, folks, because football season, we're almost to November, guys. This season is pretty much half over now at this point, and it's going to be over soon. So enjoy it, soak it up. It's going to be gone in a blink of an eye.
I don't know where the game of the week is this week, but Carrollton Douglas County feels like an absolute banger.
Yeah, it feels like
two really good teams right there.
Feels like you might need stitches after that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, feels like that one might be a little bit of a beatdown. I mean, a little bit of a slugfest because those two teams are very, very close in proximity, and they're both really, really talented. Palmer, what do you think about this Georgia-Florida game?
I think Georgia wins. I definitely think Georgia wins.
Going out on a limb, huh?
I know. What's the line at? Because at last I saw it was
16.5 the last time I looked. Give me just a second.
Yeah, last I saw it was around 16. I've been writing this week that Georgia's a more than 2 touchdown point favorite, which is true regardless of whether it's 16 or 15 or 14.5 or whatever it may be. The line may have gone shot in Georgia's favor some with that injury news. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And I like Georgia to cover that spread.
The line has actually moved down to 16.
16?
Yeah.
I like Georgia to cover it. I think that DJ Lagway. Last time we saw a freshman quarterback in this game with Anthony Richardson, Georgia made his life hard. It was a long day for Anthony Richardson there back in 2021. And I guess he might have been a redshirt freshman as opposed to a true freshman. But DJ Lagway, talented player. Kirby Smart with multiple weeks to prepare. I think that, is going to find a way to make it a long day for Lagway. Nice little rhyme there. I think that those injuries, losing Eugene Wilson, using Jason Marshall, certainly hurts. And so I like Georgia to come out and get this ball rolling towards the end of the season and get momentum, keep momentum going. I mean, they just knocked off the number 1 team on the road, and that feels forever ago. But I think that the momentum that they got from that and the confidence that they gained from that and the proof is it now in the pudding of they can play really good football. And I like Georgia. I think Carson Beck, that week off, he's going back to his hometown. I think that he's going to have a good chance to settle down some. I think that, and we've talked about this pre-first bye week, you wanted him to let it rip some. Then after that first bye week and the last couple of games going into this second bye week, hey man, let's take it off a little bit. Let's ease it up. So I think we see the best version of Carson. I think we see the best version of this Georgia team, and I think that the Bulldogs roll to a win Saturday in Jacksonville.
I didn't feel that way at the beginning of the week. My thinking at the beginning of the week was I thought DJ Lagway had the skill set to just give Georgia all sorts of fits and all sorts of trouble, and I thought Georgia would be I thought Georgia might find itself in a 4-quarter game. These injuries have changed my mind a little bit, and I also think, I think I've talked myself into it. I'm not trying to act like I've come up with this, sage thing. It's just kind of one of these, back and forth, and I think I finally landed on something. Randomly, not from a logical standpoint, but I think I've talked myself into this Georgia team kind of looking different coming out of the bye. And I don't mean like a ton better or flipping the script or anything like that. I don't think they have to do that. I just think that, especially defensively, I think Georgia might have tasted a little blood against Texas, and I kind of expect them to be more aggressive and more locked in going forward. Offensively, I think Georgia's got a chance to kind of incrementally improve and become a steady, strong, explosive offense. They've been explosive this year thus far. That's the thing. They haven't been consistent, but they have been explosive. Well, one of the better teams in the country in 20 and 30-plus yard plays. That's just all there is to it. They are. And so, Georgia, they can be that. They just have to find a way to kind of manage the game better offensively. And I think managing the game better will give them better opportunities to score more. And rather than putting the defense in tough spots, they're actually, helping the defense build leads. I think there's a way that this thing's going to come together for Georgia, and they're going to make a run. And so I like them to actually start pretty quick, more 22 against Florida than 21 and 23. But I think Georgia's going to start pretty fast. I think Georgia's going to run the ball well. I think Carson Beck takes care of it. They take a little pressure off of them. And, I remember last year after the UAB game, and Trent Dilfer said, I think that was the team that found something. Now, they kind of did. They farted around a little bit at Auburn, but they kind of did find something. They went play action. They went, shot plays. Big plays, and kind of became really explosive after that game, especially in that fourth quarter against Auburn. I think Georgia finds something against Florida this week. I think Georgia finds a little something, and then you got Ole Miss, you got Tennessee before that really tough stretch of UMass and Tech comes up the end of the season, and that's going to make or break the Dogs for sure. But Palmer, you made a point about the SEC championship. Let's debate this really fast before we get these folks out of here. The SEC championship, you're saying miss out on the SEC championship game if you're Georgia, 11-1, 5th seed more than likely. Is you thinking that's the ideal scenario?
I'm not saying you're intentionally missing the SEC championship.
Sure, no doubt.
It's on the table for Georgia right now that they can win out and take care of their business. And
you try to win, and you play the guys that are healthy enough to play and help you win and all that stuff. Maybe you don't take chances on who you're playing or whatever. I totally get that. I'm just saying, like, okay, we're kind of you're almost getting your kind of word on the record here to kind of see how it falls into place. With so many spots. And I do 100% agree with you that I think that rather than having to take on a top shelf, really talented, really physical SEC team in the SEC
emotional game too. With a lot to Kirby Smart. I think that ending in that 5th seed is not the worst thing in the world. And I think the way
guaranteed by getting, because listen, if you play in, I think the backdrop of the whole thing is the risk of playing in that game and losing, because then your back's just against the wall. I mean, you're going to get an extra week.
Played an extra game, and you still have to play that first round game.
Now the consolation prize here is that you do get a week before a game week. So you do get a week off that everybody gets. But you don't have to play, like, you don't go from playing that Saturday to playing the very next Saturday like they do in the NFL. Like that's not how it works. So, at the very least, you do have 1 week to get better, to get healthy and all of that stuff. But, either way, if you either win that conference championship and you get that first round bye, or you make it as an at-large who didn't make the conference championship and you get a bye. And there's a purgatory in there. And I wonder if the committee is going to set some sort. It's going to be really weird if the committee tries to set some sort of precedent of a team going to a conference championship game rated lower than another team, losing, and then maybe getting a better seed.
Yeah,
because that would be weird.
Because you have a conference championship on your resume, and the other thing is, you mentioned that the 5th seed would be where Georgia likely would end up. There's a good chance that they would end up at 6 as well. I mean, a lot of it would depend on, does Oregon make it to that conference championship game undefeated? Do they win that conference championship game? And if they end up as a 1-loss, are they going to get put a 1-loss team from that, a 12-1 Oregon team with a loss to Penn State or Ohio State or whoever it may be in that game? And, I think that they probably would end up ahead of Georgia, considering they finished 12-0 and Georgia would have finished 11-1. But, there is so much football to be played. A lot that is still to be decided. Very interested to see kind of how these rankings look next week. I think that Georgia's got as good of a chance as anybody, and it's definitely weird that we're talking about a chance that Georgia wins out and that they don't go to the SEC championship game, but are still very well positioned for a run at a national championship.
Well, I don't think anybody has to explain to Georgia fans how much it sucks having to play in the SEC championship game and the impact on the playoff. Georgia, I still firmly believe Georgia had the best team in the country last year. I think Georgia would have probably run Michigan, off the field like it did in the Orange Bowl the year before or the couple of years before. I think Georgia was more athletic, more physical, and more well-rounded and a better team to kind of handle Michigan. And handle the playoff.
And that team, that Georgia team last year, so banged up, would have very much benefited from a bye week.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm just saying, like, just last year's team in general, that layoff, all of that stuff, Georgia got kind of, you didn't earn it. And that's what that's what's going to have to be the message, I think, for these conference championship runners up. Even the ones that don't make it, I mean, there are going to be some that don't make the playoff in general. And,
not in the SEC, probably.
No. But I think there's somebody around the country, and very soon is going to happen. May happen as soon as this year, that a conference champion doesn't, get in there. Not a conference champion, but a conference championship runner-up doesn't get in there. And I think it's going to happen fairly soon.
Wouldn't shock me at all in the Big 12. Wouldn't.
Yeah.
It would assuming we're talking about a Miami-Clemson matchup in the ACC, that would surprise me. But, that's where – name one time that the ACC has been screwed out of a playoff spot, Jake.
Yeah, I can't remember. Never, really.
Never.
They're the darlings of college football, the ACC. All right, guys, get out of here. Go have a great weekend. Watch this Georgia-Florida game. Palmer and I headed to Jacksonville tomorrow. Palmer is gonna be in a peloton of different bike riders. He's riding down for a cure for RBF, and he's gonna get himself fixed up with that. And then I'm gonna actually fly down. I'll be waiting on him with a cocktail when he gets there. Y'all take it easy.